everybody. My name is Graham Elwood, and you are watching Boom, the political vigilante bringing truth to the citizens of Gotham. So there's a lot of crazy stuff in the news. I guess Putin's going nuts. He's going to invade the Ukraine. We see stories like this. This was an NPR with Russian troops massed at the border. Ukrainians are preparing for a possible invasion. Oh my goodness. CNN. Look what they had to say. U.S. says no breakthrough in frank and forthright talks with Russia over Ukraine border crisis. So this is how it's being told in the Western media, is Putin is just trying to invade the Ukraine. Nowhere is anybody mentioning how Putin is going, actually, I don't want NATO bases in the Ukraine. If you look at a map of Russia, it is almost surrounded by American military bases, as is China. So you can't see any honest discussion about what's happening in the Ukraine in the Western media. So you got to go to RT. So I want to show you this.
Okay, well, let's go back to our top story now, because Western media are stepping up their attacks on Moscow, trumpeting what the Kremlin calls unsubstantiated warnings of Russia's imminent invasion of Ukraine. The Russian government has strenuously denied any move towards a conflict, but has laid out red lines against NATO's eastward expansion towards its borders. Well, we're pleased to say we can bring in that former UK Ambassador Craig Murray, despite a glitch earlier. Craig, good to see you again. Why do you think the West is drumming up fears here of a Russian invasion when Russia has said, look, consistently we have said we will not attack and we want a diplomatic solution?
Well, I mean, first thing to say is, of course, there isn't going to be a Russian invasion. This is a fuss concocted out of nothing. And partly it's to do with your last item. I mean, in the United Kingdom, you have a government in deep trouble and very unpopular. You have the same with Joe Biden. Joe Biden is plumbing depths of unpopularity, but no president has ever plumbed.
So just so we're clear here, this guy who's explaining used to be the ambassador, the UK ambassador to the Ukraine. So he's very skilled in the, right? So this isn't just some guy. All right. And he's showing these articles showing, oh, Russia's going to attack and all this. And there's no mention of, it's just Putin's flexing his muscles because he's a crazy tyrant.
Before, except for Donald Trump. So a foreign distraction, say battling, warmongering, is always something which politicians turn to, and which generally they can rely on their media to reflect and take up. So we're seeing this Russophobic warmongering propaganda, largely, I think, as a distraction from the internal weakness of these key Western governments.
Did you hear that? That's a pretty wow, that's a good point. Joe Biden's approval rating is horrible. Kamala Harris's is even worse than that. Boris Johnson's got a horrible approval rating. So what gets everybody all worked up? What gets everyone all united? Oh boy, Russia. We all got to fight Russia. And America has been playing this card since the end of World War II. We've been playing this card since 1945. Russia's bad, Russia's bad, Russia's bad, Russia's bad. They're coming to get us.
How long do you think that this rhetoric can last, though? I asked that because earlier today, a Ukrainian politician from the ruling party actually said the claims of a Russian invasion are actually inciting unnecessary panic. I mean, the Secretary of State is in Ukraine. He must be hearing this too. Do you think there's a chance that the West might back off because they've also said they want a diplomatic solution?
They have said they want a diplomatic solution, but at the same time, the West is doing things which escalate the problem. For example, it's just been announced that the United Kingdom is sending 100 soldiers to Ukraine for training purposes, to train on anti-tank weapons. That's what the UK is doing. You multiply that by many NATO countries, and you'll get increasing foreign forces on Russia's borders and increasing.
And this is what we do, right? Us and the allies with the Brits or whatever, Australia, will do whatever we tell them to do. So we send troops and weapons over there and act like we just have to. I mean, honestly, internationally, we do the same thing we do with our police departments. There's a Black Lives Matter protest. People are peacefully protesting. Then the cops show up armed to the teeth and stir up trouble. Like, this is what we do, man. This is like, we're and it's funny. I just talking to Susie Dawson on the phone, and she's like laughing. She's like, boy, in the Western media, it sounds like we're on alert for war. Everyone's going. She goes, I'm in Moscow. Everyone's going to the mall. They're outside. Like, what are you talking about? Like, and we stir this up. We send Blinken there. He's there right now. Secretary of State Blinken is there. And he's trying to do and we always present this as this, like, we're trying to avoid peace, but whoa, the bad Russian bad guys or Saddam or whomever, we just, oh man, we don't know what to do. And I'm not saying whatever, Saddam or Putin or, I'm not excusing anything they've ever done. I'm just saying this is how we react and stir this up. There's no way Russia wants to get into a war with us. There's no way. They just don't want bases across. Imagine if Russia was trying to put, they were cozying up with Mexico and talking about building a base in Mexico. I'll do even one better. I just did a video on how China is building a soccer stadium in El Salvador, because it's a Bitcoin haven now. Imagine if that was a Chinese military base in Central America. Americans, the government, we would be going bananas. We have the equivalent of Russian, and what we have done to Russia is the equivalent of if Russia had bases all throughout the Caribbean, Mexico, up near Canada, Halifax. I mean, just unbelievable. Vancouver, Canada had a Russian base. We had bases all along the Russia had bases all along the Canadian and Mexican borders. Can you imagine how fucking nuts we would go? How insane we would go? We would like to view ourselves as the heroes. We are the aggressors. We are the aggressors. And you can't, why isn't this guy on CNN or MSNBC? Why can't we have the former UK ambassador to the Ukraine? He's not some Putin puppet. He's a UK guy who was the ambassador to the Ukraine, knows the region. Why can't we have him? Why isn't he on CNN? Why do I have to go scour through YouTube to find this interview on RT?
Military build-up. So they're doing things, if you like, on purpose to keep the tension going. There must come a time after some months where the constant predictions Russia is about to invade will look silly when Russia doesn't invade. And the other thing is, of course, that Russia does currently have troops on exercise on its eastern borders within Russia, where it's perfectly entitled to be. But at some time, those exercises will themselves come to a natural close, and there will be less troops on the eastern border. So my guess is we're going to go through this for the next couple of months. I expect we'll have constant alarmism. The danger is that this is a stupid and dangerous game that there can be by nationalist extremists in Ukraine or by breakaway Russian supporters in Ukraine. There can be an accidental escalation of conflict. This kind of military buildup is always extremely foolish.
At this point, Craig, we haven't heard anybody really talk about it.
Accidental military. That's what we're stirring it up. We didn't just send more diplomats. We send more weapons. I mean, like, imagine, we can't ever imagine what it's like to be someone else as America. We just think, oh, the Russian people are all lied to and propagandized. Yeah, no one's American. Nobody's lied to in America. We're just always given the straight truth. And again, if we're this free democracy with this freedom of press, how come this guy is not on? Why don't we get to at least hear his point of view, even if he's debating or disagreeing with someone at CNN or some military nutbag that we have as a intelligence expert? Why can't Americans hear this opinion? Because it goes against, because you know what? Boeing and Raytheon, they don't buy ad time on RT. They buy ad time on MSNBC. They buy ad time on Fox and ABC and CBS and CNN. They buy ad time on all that. The military industrial complex buys ad time on all those things.
Other than they want, or they would prefer, a diplomatic one. But what could that be? Because Russia's red lines are very clear, but there seems to be a great reluctance by the West to accept Russia's concerns over NATO's expansion.
You have to recall, of course, that the West hasn't recently invaded anywhere. There's not really a hot war going on at the moment. You still have some continuing conflict in Iraq. Joe Biden, one of the few very sensible things of his presidency, pulled out of Afghanistan. And Western arms manufacturers don't like it when there's no war and there's been no invasion. That's very, very bad for arms sales and for the military security arms industry.
Do you hear that? Former diplomat from the UK. It's bad if there's no wars going on. It's bad for business. Did you hear? This is what I just said, right? He's not some surfing vegan YouTube comedian just shooting his mouth off as an apartment. This guy knows the international landscape better than I ever will. And he just said what I just told you. Peace is bad for business if you're in a military industrial complex. If you're a defense contractor, if you make bombs and war and, oh, bad for business. So we got to stir up a war.
So they have to lean on politicians for more warmongering propaganda. So the will isn't there on the Western side. There's an existing mechanism. There were agreements in place on how to de-escalate the situation in Ukraine. And to be fair to Russia, Russia has done its best to stick to those mechanisms, but there's plainly no interest at all in Western governments or the Ukraine. So I think you're going to see the Western media and Western governments keeping this period of kind of Cold War propaganda going as long as they possibly can, because they just have no interest in calming it or genuinely seeking to find a solution.
Okay, Craig, we'll leave it there, but really good to talk to you today. That was Craig Murray, a former UK ambassador to Uzbekistan. Thanks for coming on.
Sorry, to Uzbekistan. So he knows the region. I said Ukraine. My apologies. From Uzbekistan. Like, this guy should be doing every news show right now. Why isn't CNN should be falling over themselves to get this guy in the show? But it's not, it's bad for business. So we got to stir this up. It'll help Joe Biden's approval rating. It'll help the military industrial complex because they don't make enough money. And it's not, I mean, democratically controlled Congress just approved $768 billion for Biden's war budget. 51 members of the Progressive Caucus said yes to that. It goes to the Senate for approval. Senate didn't approve $768 billion. They approved $778 billion. Yep. The Senate gave an extra $10 billion. The Democrats control the House and the Senate, and Biden gets unlimited money for war. Boy, we need a war to use it on, just like this guy said. So we have to go to YouTube, to RT, a channel I've been on. RT's never paid me a nickel, by the way. I just go on and they, you know. And this is what the Western media is going to put. We're going to hear all this crap from the Western media. Putin won't back down. It'll be all this Russia's the aggressor language and no mention. We can't even, why can't that guy even just come on to debate just to hear that opinion, even if it's a different one? If you're supposedly supposed to be a journalist, these big media outlets, and you want to get both sides of the issue, then get this guy on. That won't happen. All the money, connect the dots, get the truth, folks. That's what's happening in Ukraine. Also, by the way, there's people, the side of the Ukrainian government that the United States always backs, has a lot of neo-Nazis in them. Oh, by the way, it's another time where the United States is backing neo-Nazis because Putin's wrong. Capitalists need to make a profit off of war. So capitalists will do business with anybody, literally Nazis. Capitalists will do business with Nazis if it's good for business. Hey, those Nazi guys are nuts, but the check's clear. That's America. So just remember, you and I can't get free healthcare. They've had free healthcare in Western Europe and in Russia for 70 years. We can't get healthcare. Are you facing foreclosure or eviction because you lost your job during the pandemic? No help for you, but we got money for war. We got money to send troops and equipment and gear to the Ukraine and ramp up a war. We always got money for war. We always got money for war, right? Got contaminated water in Flint, Michigan and Hawaii and all these other places. Sorry, can't fix that, but we got money for war. Right? Anything get destroyed in a natural disaster just in the last year? Climate change has exacerbated those tornadoes. It's exacerbated the floods. It exacerbates the hurricanes, the fires on the West Coast. There's still communities that haven't been rebuilt for years, but we got money for war. We got money for war. Just whenever you drive through wherever you live and you see like a road that isn't fixed or a school or a library that like, how come we don't have money for that? Just remember, we do have money, but it goes for war. It doesn't go to help make your life better, my life better. You see a homeless encampment, we don't have money for that. We got money for war, but we don't have money for the homeless. Just remember, anytime a pothole, a jungle gym in a park that's crappy that needs to be fixed, your kid's school doesn't have the right facilities, just remember, they always got money for war. We have the money. It just doesn't go for good things. Shave your knuckles for justice. Boom. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching. We are still in our 9th month of demonetization from YouTube. So support what we're doing at patreon.com/Graham Elwood or rockfin.com/Graham Elwood, which is a blockchain cryptocurrency platform. It's free to sign up, and there's a premium level at $10 a month. And for that, you get everybody on the platform's premium content. Myself, Lee Camp, Ron Placone, Jimmy Dore, Whitney Webb, Kim Iverson, Abby Martin, and many, many others. You can also support what we're doing at Venmo at Graham-Elwood and go to GrahamElwood.com. We have a PayPal button and a PO box. I also have crypto wallets, which are all in the show notes. Thanks for supporting what we do.